Introductions.
That was Siri.
Got it, okay, let's do a round of introductions. I'm Nancy Wise, Commissioner and Chair.
Pat Malone, Commissioner and Vice Chair.
Zano, Board Commissioner.
Good morning, Joe Kirby, County Administrator.
Vance Crony, County Council.
Mark Wachowski, Meeting Recorder. And anyone in the audience who would like to introduce themselves?
Corey Grogan, Public Extension.
March Papa, Server.
Darren Nichols, Community Development Director.
And those joining us online.
Jeff Van Arsdale, Benton County Sheriff.
Sam Imperati, BCTT Facilitator.
Anyone else online who would like to introduce themselves? All right, with that, we can move on to announcements. Are there any announcements? Being none, we will review and approve the agenda. One change to the agenda, we are going to move item 4.4 to our next meeting, which is December 20th. So we will be removing item 4.4. Any other changes to the agenda?
There,
I will consider that approved. Let's see, next that takes us to our goal setting meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve or make any changes?
I just wanted to note that there were several names misspelled along the way up, and I would be happy to send that list of name spelling corrections to Maura.
Thank you.
But I move to approve those sets of minutes with those corrections.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And I just wanted to say thank you to staff for working on those minutes and getting them done. I did not catch the name misspelling, so thank you for sure for catching that. All right, that will take us into discussion topics. First up is item 4.1, Benton County Talks Trash Solid Waste Work Group. And we're discussing membership and status updates. And with us today, Vance Crony, County Council, and Joe Kirby, our County Administrator.
Thank you, Commissioner Wise. I guess there's three topics within this, subtopics within this topic. The first is to discuss appointment and funding of another lawyer to the legal subcommittee, legal issues subcommittee. I think you're all well versed in the rationale behind that request. So I think it's, in a nutshell, the desire is to have a representative from the county, which is myself, from Republic, which is Jeff Condit, and from the community, which is, oh, that's why we're here. There isn't one. So that's what this item would do. It would authorize an expenditure of funds to hire a third lawyer to sit on that committee. So that, I think the lawyer, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, is Virginia Gustafson Lunder, former member of Land Use Board of Appeals. She's a Benton County resident, fluent in land use, which is not always that common these days. So she will be a wonderful addition. So that's the first thing for you to consider. Second thing, any questions on that before we go further? Okay, silence is good in this case. All right. Second topic is to again request authorization for funding to allow planning to move forward with looking for and ultimately hiring a consulting firm to perform the land use planning review function if and when a land use application is submitted by Republic Services to expand the current landfill. As you know, the desire is to pull county staff out of the middle of that process and have an independent third party, if you will, whose job is to perform, handle the processing, the application review, staff report, the planning commission and board of commissioner meeting staffings for the county on that specific land use application, again, if and when that comes forward. Along with that is a request to provide funding for a land use lawyer to ride shotgun on that process. That land use lawyer would provide advice to the consulting firm, to Benton County, would be available at the planning commission hearings and at the board of commissioner meeting. And if there is an appeal to Lubbock Court of Appeals, the intent would be for that lawyer to carry Benton County's interest through any appeals that may arise. So that is item 2 to discuss whether the board wishes to authorize funding for those 2 types of expenditures. The third topic is to discuss the work group membership. As you know, we have an opening that is currently vacant that was originally an appointment from the planning commission. You have had, I think, 2 interviews with maybe 2 more to come from folks to fill your current planning commission vacancies. So the idea would be to appoint someone from that pool to slide over and fill that seat on the Benton County Cox Trash work group. So that's one item of discussion for you. The other is to consider swapping out an existing member for somebody who is currently an alternate. And that would be to swap out Joel Geyer for Chuck Gilbert. I was going to say Roger Gilbert, and I knew that was incorrect. I think you've had conversations regarding that particular possibility. I won't belabor those. That is the 4th item. 2 items within the work group membership discussion. So with that, I will ask you how you want to handle these 4 topics. And
Sure. Maybe we can just run down them one by one. First, County Administrator, did you want to add anything?
Commissioner, not at this time.
So number 1, authorization of funding for an independent and community-based legal counsel be put forward for consideration by BCTT work group. Authorize counsel to provide independent research for the work group's legal subcommittee. Support for that.
Yes.
I just have that as well.
Yes.
Okay, number 1, you have support.
perfect, thank you.
Number 2, authorization of staff to solicit independent third-party land use consultants of outside counsel. Have my support on that.
My full support.
So there's a law firm that we would hire, but you also mentioned a specific lawyer. Is that part of the package?
I can't answer that question exactly, Commissioner Malone. The idea would be to reach out to several lawyers to find out if they're interested. They may come as part of the law firm, they may not. I have solicited some names from my county council listserv, folks who have hired land use lawyers to represent counties. I've talked to City Attorney Jim Brewer about who the city uses and about who OSU uses for their land use. So I have a pretty darn good list. And honestly, Pat, of that list, I think 1 is a sole practitioner and 2 come with law firms. So that's why I say I can't answer your question directly, and I apologize for that.
Commissioner Malone, I'd just like to interject if you don't mind. So I think that the 2 items that the board is talking about right now are, just really vital to try and remove the perception that some folks hold the county staff is somehow biased. And so I really think that these steps are important to ensure transparency, remove our staff from the situation so that this perception can be shown that we have addressed it and that we are bringing in outside assistance in order to help us continue to move forward with the charter that the board has given, as well as processing a anticipated future land use application. So from an administrative perspective, I think it's important for the benefit of our staff and our community development department that we move forward with not only the one that you already helped give advanced direction on, but also number 2 as well regarding the plans.
And let me back up. Would you like motions on?
I don't think we need motion direction or approval is okay, but I believe you two had said you were comfortable. You asked a question, so thereby avoiding the direct question put to you.
I was giving you time to finish the notes.
Yeah, I think this is a good idea, and it kind of goes along with hiring Sam Roddy, getting the process led by third parties rather than county staff. So that seems like I'm in favor of it, and seems like it's a continuation of what we've tried to do all along.
Okay, so what, and I am going to speak for Darren Nichols on this one, but we will keep you informed as we move forward with the process of identifying potential planning consultants and lawyers so that you're in the loop. I won't speak for Darren on this, but I will most likely put a couple names in front of you, ask if you have any preferences. This will be after I get back from vacation.
So we would not use a standard RFP process.
Don't need to for this kind of work. These are specialized consultants which do not require a process.
Okay,
I'm looking back there in the background and Darren looks just fine. He's smiling, so I think that's okay.
Oh, he's always smiling.
He is, that's a great trait.
Okay,
Okay, so we have direction on 2 of those.
all right, number 3, I think. So consideration of work group membership, including appointing 1 or more members or alternates to fill vacant member seats. So I think we can break this up into kind of 3A and 3B.
Okay,
So 3A, we're talking about planning commission. We need to appoint someone from the planning commission to fill that vacant seat. I did hear from the chair of the planning commission that he had asked members if they were interested. No one came forward. We did just appoint a new member, 2 new members that will be official next Tuesday. One of those being Andrew Struthers, who has expressed to me an interest of filling that seat.
and I also know we have a couple of other additional potential members, and I think at least one of them would be a good fit as well. So I'm not sure I'm ready to do that
I
today.
was just gonna say we have next Wednesday, additional planning commission interviews.
Mhm.
And so after that, I think we'll have a better idea of maybe who we want to appoint.
Yeah,
and I think that time frame works well. There's another work group meeting on Thursday, which obviously comes before, but I think there's a break until after the first of the year. So there's sort of that window for you to consider who of your new appointments might be best suited to slide over to.
Well, and we could encourage new members to attend the work group session as a member of the public. Might be a good way to get introduced to the group and not have to wait till they're officially appointed. And gives them a little opportunity to get up to speed.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so we will consider that after we have made our planning commission appointments. So future date. Do we want to put that on the agenda for the 20th? Next meeting, next Tuesday.
Well, didn't you just say your planning commission appointments are on Wednesday?
So the interviews are on Wednesday, and then the 20th is when we will officially make it so.
That potentially be on the consent calendar for appointment. That Tuesday.
But next Tuesday comes before next Wednesday, so.
No, sorry, tomorrow,
You kept saying next, I'm like, whoa, I know my calendar.
sorry.
Okay.
Today, today, I feel like today is gonna be 2 days for me, so.
Okay, yes, even better, the window is even better, okay,
Yes.
good.
Okay. So 3B is the consideration of removing Joel Geyer from the Talks Trash Board group and replacing with the alternate Jack Gilbert. And I think we should probably have a motion for this one.
Yes,
Thoughts, comments on the motion?
I think this is necessary, probably overdue. I'd make a motion.
Rita, I'll entertain a motion.
I just want to say that this is a very difficult decision for me. I don't like to remove people from these kinds of appointments. And I want to thank Joel Geyer for all that he's contributed. He brings a lot to the table in terms of knowledge and expertise and passion. And but as I understand it, there have been some recent actions that have made it almost impossible for him to continue to work with given that his stance on the materials he's put forth, including asserting copyright and the fact that the county can't then use that as part of the work process. So it's I just want to acknowledge that sense of personal challenge.
Sure. I think that's good to know. I mean, these decisions are never easy. They're not ones we like to make. I do thank him and everyone else who volunteered their time for that one.
No, I would agree, but his process is taking longer and costing more than we anticipated, and I think it's important to keep an eye on what the goal is, and what we need to, how we need to support the work group so they can have the best chance of being successful.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I will make a motion to remove Joel Geyer from Talking Trash work group and replace him with Chuck Gilbert as alternate.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
I
Motion carries.
Commissioners, I do have a point of clarification. You didn't talk anything about the solid waste advisory committee, so I'm assuming that it's the board's intention to continue to have Joel represented on that group.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else on this agenda?
no, man, thank you all,
Okay, thank you.
very efficient.
Next, that will bring us to item 4.2, Board of Commissioners 2023 meeting schedule. And Maura is going to give us off.
Thank you, Commissioner Wise. Good morning, Commissioners. You may recall that at the November goal setting meeting, we reviewed a spreadsheet of the various meetings that the board conducts throughout the year. And the board gave some direction and revised the schedule for 2023 somewhat based on what had occurred in 2022. So after kind of taking that information and actually laying it out on the calendar, there's a little over half a dozen meetings where there may be some kind of difficulty or conflict. And that's the information is in your packet. There's a table that shows those. And while it's certainly not necessary to make a decision today, I just thought if you wanted to provide some guidance regarding these issues, we could, perhaps get in front of them and get the schedule nice and clean. And we certainly will have the whole year to make any adjustments if need be. So I was just looking for some kind of direction or thoughts about how you would like to address the 7 anomalies that are listed on the table in your packet.
Sure, I think we have plenty of time. We had several things fall off of our agenda today, so. I think if you want to just take them one number by number, we can just get through them real quick.
Okay, absolutely.
And I want to acknowledge that I really appreciate doing this because some of these things happen everywhere and dealing with them in the beginning of the calendar year, so we have more calendar certainty is really greatly appreciated.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, yeah, it's always good to address the conflicts up front, and then we can plan for them, and everybody will know what's going to happen and can plan their own calendars accordingly.
Perfect.
Okay, so the first one is the January 4th 5 electeds meeting. That meeting is typically held from 12 to 1. We also on that particular day have a leadership team meeting beginning at 1:30. This is just a minor, I was considering perhaps a time adjustment to start that 5 electeds a little bit early, just to give you some buffer and a break between meetings. Have an easy.
Yes, I would suggest maybe reaching out to the sheriff of the district attorney to ask what their preference would be. Because I mean, that would be okay for me, but I obviously can't speak for all 5 of us.
Yeah, it goes along with that.
Right, so-
Yeah.
Sheriff is online, so he can share that.
Sheriff, I see you popped on. Would you like to say anything?
I apologize more. I missed the date.
This is the January 4th, 2023 5 electeds meeting. It bumps up against the leadership meeting scheduled for that day just a little bit. And so I was suggesting just perhaps starting that meeting 30 minutes earlier, just to give you all a bit of a buffer and a little bit of break between meetings.
Nope, that works for me.
Okay, and I'll reach out to the district attorney to confirm.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And for me, I think it's fine to leave it as is. The DA has an issue with that. But I remember it was fairly prompt at finishing by 1 o'clock, so I mean, there is some buffer built in.
Okay. Okay, I'll check with him and we can go from there on that one. Okay. So the July 3rd, 5 elected meetings, that is set for a Monday. Independence Day is Tuesday, July 4th, and it's the kind of thing where it's an ideal time for people to perhaps take a little bit longer weekend. So we can certainly leave it there, or we can reschedule it for another date. July 10th would be the next Monday, but obviously would check calendars and make sure that would work. But I just, if you all wanted to look at that as for potentially a 4-day holiday weekend, probably could maybe resolve that issue.
Sure.
Well, this is early enough that we have a shot at getting it rescheduled a week later.
Okay, I'll proceed that way, just make sure that all the schedules align for the 10th.
Yeah, just double check and see if that works for everybody.
Okay. And then that brings us to July 4th, which is a Tuesday, and that is the date where we would typically have a first Tuesday board business meeting. Under potential resolutions, I looked at backing it up a week to get a meeting in by doing it on June 27th and canceling the July 4th. That also does allow for, there are 3 more meetings in the month of July to make sure that we can address any business issues that need to be addressed by the board during that month. Makes sense?
Yeah, I'd be okay bumping it back, or canceling, depending on our load. Do we ever push it to like a Wednesday?
That's another option.
We haven't, we've rarely done that, but
I guess,
if there's no reason not to.
sure, except maybe if there's lots of other stuff scheduled on Wednesday, I see these calendars, but the Corral City Council meets on Mondays, and there's so many Monday holidays that they would just routinely bump them back to Tuesdays, so. But yes, other thoughts or preferences?
No strong preference. picking far in advance is my strong preference.
Okay. Do we want to tentatively say that we'll hold it the week before? And then depending on when we get to that point, if there's more stuff on the agenda or. You know, we'll have more information at that point, we could say, we could change it at that point or get closer.
I tentatively am out that last week of June, that's,
Okay.
so in that
Do you
case,
want to consider the Wednesday, the 5th instead?
it would work fine for me.
I have a feeling I don't have set plans yet, but I might be out of town on the 5th. As long as there's two other commissioners here, you will be here, we're out of town.
The 27th works for me or if. And on the, if we have a leadership meeting in the afternoon. I would pencil something in and then if. the agenda permits.
Let's pencil it in on the 5th. And then we can change it as we get closer if needed.
Okay, thank you. Then November 14th, 2023, we've confirmed that the goal setting meeting scheduled for that week will conflict with the annual AOC conference that you all attend. And the goal setting meeting is a lengthy one. So if we wanted to try to keep it within that week, on Monday the 13th or Friday the 17th are options. We can also consider other options if you like.
Sure. Knowing how those weeks usually go, I would prefer not to do it, have a long 6-hour meeting on the Friday after that coming back.
The 13th might be better.
The 13th probably would be better because normally we always run into, you know, having we usually have a board meeting on the first day of the conference. And do we have time to hold it or not? But if we hold the goal setting meeting the day before, then any business that we would consider holding a special short meeting for, we could just take care of on the 13th.
Monday the 13th.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Then November 21st is the third Tuesday board meeting. It falls the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. This year, we did end up moving the meetings that we had during Thanksgiving week. If we followed this year's precedent, we would just simply move it to the following Tuesday, which would be a 4th Tuesday.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Along that same line, the bi-monthly meeting with the county council, an executive session falls in that same week, but on Wednesday. And my proposal was that we just move it to the following week, like we did the board meeting, to avoid any conflicts with Thanksgiving travel.
Okay.
And the last one is the November 28th city managers quarterly meeting. Since we have agreed to move the third Tuesday meeting, which is a business board meeting, to the 28th, we could bump up against that quarterly meeting if the board meeting were to run along. So the suggestion would be to move that to the 29th. It's typically held in the room and would not conflict with the county council meeting that we just move to that date because that one's typically held in the morning.
So third Tuesday meeting. Those are the ones that are usually over by noon, right? The meeting that we're rescheduling to there.
Yes, unless the agenda is very full and goes over. So I just wanted to consider that potential and maybe get in front of it, but we can certainly
Sure.
leave it for the 28th.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if it's, you know, if everyone's used to, if all the city managers are used to having it on the Tuesday and we change it to Wednesday, is that an issue? Then again, I feel like there's one or two that have a harder time getting there, and maybe it would be nice for them to have it on a Wednesday and then hopefully attend.
It's far enough in advance that I think we should could certainly check in with them and find out if that works.
Okay, like, so, are you suggesting reach out and ask managers what their preferences? Or,
I think that it's probably a good idea, because we can do it either on Tuesday or Wednesday of that week. Yeah,
okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
I can certainly pull the city managers and see if that works for the group.
perfect. I think that'd be my preference. Whatever works for the majority of them, we should do, and I think we can make it work. And if we have to have the meeting on the same day as the rescheduled board meeting, we'll just, be cognizant of that.
Okay. All right, well, those were all of the potential conflicts that I wanted to address, so thank you for your time.
I appreciate you looking ahead for us.
that's very helpful. Thank you.
Laura's very good at being proactive.
All right, with that, we'll move to item 4.3, review of the 2023 legislative priorities. And welcome, Fraser. How are you doing today?
Great, good morning, Commissioner Wise. How are you?
Good.
Good to see you. So I am here today to get your direction, Google support for state legislative agenda is what the focus is today. So just as a bit of a recap, month ago at our goal setting meeting, we had the opportunity to meet with our new contractors, CFM Advocates. Just to give you a quick update, we have successfully amended our agreement to now include them on the federal side as well. So because they can federal CFM Advocates. We will also be planning on having a gentleman by the name of Michael Skipper joining us next week. Just for a meet and greet with the board, so that we have an opportunity to meet the federal team as well. And then we are also planning that week, because he's actually going to be in Corvallis for the holidays. We'll be planning on having some strategic meetings with department heads as we start to work through a congressional agenda. So as a recap, we talked last time about a lot of ideas, things that could be both in the state and congressional agenda. And so what I did in between is I sent you all a list of things that I've heard and ideas to share out with you. I think that was for November. We got a little bit of feedback, and what I have in your packet today on page 64 and 65 is really a summary, actually 64, 65, 66, is a summary of all of those items that's been revised and updated from the draft that I sent you in late November. So this is meant to be kind of an all-inclusive list of ideas. Again, we can add more as we go along, but these were at least the initial thoughts that were, in my words, probably more shovel-ready type things that we could push forward. The more important piece, though, is the state legislative agenda right now. And that's because we are on the brink of starting that come January, and we're also at the point now where requests are coming to put in specific ask. You guys are obviously all familiar with that from 2 years ago in terms of putting in forms, and that's where our CFM advocates are really going to be helpful to us to be able to do all that work for us, and then of course to be able to carry our agenda going forward. So what I've done, and Joe and I have had a lot of conversation. I've had a lot of conversation with Nick, who's here as well. Conversation with each of you individually, particularly around JSEP. And so what I'm here to do today is present you the ideas for what we would carry forward on the state side. A couple, also I've met with CFM. I've been talking to Zach about this as well. I think, he's trying to be, because the previous area would say that, we certainly want to be reasonable in our request. I think we're at a place where, it's a so-so revenue forecast. There are opportunities out there. It may be not as nice as it was a year ago with the special session and a lot of money floating around, but I think it's important for us to be strategic. I think the things that we put forward, in his words, we really want to be, again, good projects, solid projects that we feel are ready, not necessarily dreams, but really things that are more concrete and could stand alone. So with that, we have presented to you today 5 options, essentially a 30.5, I'm going to say up to $30.5 million state legislative agenda, which I think is a pretty big ask as it relates in total, but prioritized, with our first priority being around what I entitled emergency response and preparedness. And the idea here would be that we would target specifically the Emergency Operations Center as part of our JSIP project. This would be a state legislative request that would be in concert with our bond. But I think again, back to what CFM has advised, if again, assuming if, let's just say hypothetically, I'm just thinking this way, but hypothetically, if a bond didn't pass, we would still be successful with this $5 million and be able to combine other resources that we have in place to move forward with Emergency Operations Center. So I just want that to happen. We want to think that way, but at the same time, that really, I think, bodes well for us when we go into, or when CFM advocates go in and start lobbying on our behalf. We want to be able to sell it as it could stand alone, even though it will work in concert. So that is listed as our number 1 priority. You see, I'm putting priority sponsors on here because I need some people to help me on the next step. I'll talk about it here. You approve all these, so Sheridan Arstill will certainly be our partner on that, and probably Brian Lee as well in developing some of the information, probably potentially testifying maybe down the road if it gets that far. So that's priority 1. I've also been, again, and this is just sort of again a summary document. It isn't necessarily, it's really more to guide us. But I always try to be careful with words. I like to say the word one-time capital investment because we want to be really clear. This is a one-time infusion of money. We're not going to come back for more. This will help us move forward. Priority number 2, I've entitled response to homelessness. And this is the one that used to be a rich, 1 million to 9 million. And this is, again, as a reminder, part of our bond measure that we're beginning to discuss with all of you and formalizing. There's still more discussion to come, but as part of that, we've talked about and inclusive in the bond is resources that would really move towards supporting facilities designed to address homelessness. And I'm being very vague here and not specific for a reason. I think that's the way we want to be able to approach that. There's a few things I just want to make sure that I think it's important for you all to be aware of. And as we start talking about this particular initiative and resources coming from the state and potential resources coming from the bond measure, we have to be thoughtful about how you can use bond measure resources. And I think we've learned some things here in the last week that perhaps with our original thinking of more of a gap financing approach, where you're basically plugging money into a organization to fill a gap, will not work with tax exempt and borrowing, I should say, not tax exempt debt. So this is something we've all learned a little bit. I've learned some things here that I was unfamiliar with around the Constitution and what counties can do around borrowing. And bottom line is that we believe that there is a way through in all of this, but I think we have to be really thoughtful on, depending on whatever our investment is as it relates to the bond measure, it has to be a county-owned product. Be the land, it could be the building, but that's the way we have to be able to navigate that. And because of that, I think there's conversation that Nick has been a part of, that others will need to really work closely with our community in figuring out how best to pull all of that together. So I don't have a landing amount on that because I think that there is still, again, some discussion, but I think from a priority standpoint, what I've heard from you at the last meeting, what I've heard obviously from the community, homelessness is a big issue. And the idea of being able to address that, I think bodes well for us moving forward into the session. Again, CFM and my meeting with them has said this is going to be a very, very big issue coming into the session, and there are likely a lot of various resources out there. So I think between priority 1 and priority 2, these are 2 appealing requests with the right advocacy. Let me pause for a minute before I go to 3, 4, and 5, because I think these are kind of what I would say the really strong. I think I've heard clearly from all 3 of you about these areas. But is there any questions, concerns that you have at this point on priority 1 and 2?
Just coming back from leadership summit yesterday and hearing from a few electeds and the governor-elect, housing and homeless is a recurring theme. And I think she's going to be driving the conversation, and I assume there would be some budget, some dollars available. So I think it fits in with our priorities, and it's definitely what's being probably the top issue that's been talked about as where the next legislative session is going to be operating.
Great. That sounds exactly what CFM said as well, is that these things will certainly be, and they've also said even the emergency operations center in light of the pandemic, wildfires, all the things we've seen again, that will be something that people even sell very well.
Well, and to me, it just makes sense to have our priority list, talk to our legislators or our government relations folks and make sure our priorities line up with what we think are going to be the priorities out of the state legislature. And we're going to use opportunistic and have a list and figure it out. That door's been open, this one seems to be opening and be ready. I think of the state funding that the Hope Group got, I think that was House Bill 3123, and because of considerable homework that was done, I think we got funded relatively easily. If you think like a funder, says, well, who's kind of got vague, nice ideas and who has specific projects and priorities already lined up that are more likely to be successful and complete, which the funding agency likes to see.
Good segue for me into priority 3, as you mentioned, House Bill 4123. Thank you. You set me up well. I think kind of continuing in this, moving into priority 3, which I've labeled here. Again, this is just for the presentation sake. I'm sure CFM will have ideas about how we best deliver systems for continuing care is what I have labeled it. And kind of looking at this from 2 points of view. You mentioned House Bill 4123, which we were successful in this short session, getting $1 million for building capacity. I think also the Hope Advisory Board, as you all well know much better than I, that's a big piece of building capacity within the community to serve and to be able to support. So whereas priority 2 is around the facilities piece, this really starts to move towards the resource for operation, a continuation to grow a system of services for homelessness. I think this is the one where, I don't know all the politics around House Bill 4123, where it was meant to be this infusion of $1 million to help build the system and hopefully create a sustainable system. I think we have to sort of be thoughtful about, we ultimately, that money, I think, in bill is intended for us to sort of be self-sustaining. But I think at the same time, you still need resources to be able, you need seed money to be able to get going, and this is a big job. There's a lot of work and a lot of, so this is a priority that I would say needs to be vetted a little more with Suzanne and her staff. I'm actually going to be meeting with them today, I believe, to have some discussions, but to get sort of some more meat on bones as it relates to what that actually is, how it's targeted. But I do believe there's certainly an mission.
One of the things that I see in that arena is the need to work very closely with Community Services Consortium as the third current partner on that intergovernmental agreement. And to support their effort to withdraw from the rural Oregon continuum of care and to form a continuum of care that's Lynn and Lincoln, is that will actually bring more federal resources to the table here to support what we're doing and provide for that long-term sustainability that we're looking for. So I think that, I don't know, Suzanne will probably bring that up, but you know, that's a pathway that we can describe. And I know that the Community Services Consortium, Peg McGuire, has done real research about what it's going to take to get there based on the experience of Fort Marion. So, yeah.
She also recently expressed her concern that Benton County was trying to do its own. Well, the other two counties, and we made sure to clear that up.
Oh, no. Yeah, I think that would not be, given the Samaritans span and all of the other tri-county organizations, it only makes sense to go with all three. Yeah.
And this is the one that I have 2 million in there. That certainly, again, is the fluid document, so certainly we could change. I need more information. This is just my initial sort of back of the napkin type of estimate, but Suzanne will help inform me more as it relates to that. But again, going back to what you said, Commissioner Malone, I think this is, it's going to be a topic that we hear across the board. We all know that addressing the issues of homelessness is more than just services. It's got to be a services and a facilities component. It really has to be shelter, housing, long term. It's complex, and so it's going to be something different.
And there's big emphasis on data as well in the discussion. So, and that's very much part of what we're talking here locally too. So I think we're in the right track. One of the things that I see is that I think a lot of this money is going to go to Portland. Portland's a huge priority for the business community and legislature as well. But we can help them spread money around and make it look less centric.
Which generally they want to do, because that's a common complaint. Doesn't matter whether it's transportation or housing, and just shows the importance of us being ready and saying we're ready to go. We know what to do. We need the dollars for this project, and we'll make you proud. So.
So moving to priority 4, I tried to channel Nancy Wise in terms of assessing community safety. And one of the things we talked very eloquently about the last time was, assessing, particularly about bridges, but assessing the infrastructure that we currently have, and are we safe as possible. This one is really focused more on planning dollars. I'm pretty sure I think you talked a lot about do we maybe use this as a broad opportunity to look at things like bridges, like water, and like water services to infrastructure, broadband. And so really try to look at it from the standpoint, let's thoroughly assess our community and make sure that we're set up for the next emergency or situation that may occur. So again, this one needs some more detail around it in terms of exactly how we would target it. Joe and I talked a little bit about how we could also maybe morph this into the work we're currently doing with service districts, with some of those dollars. So again, trying to keep this open. Gary would be kind of my main person, I would need to really work with on that, but, I threw $4 million into that, just again, thinking about what the cost has been around, just doing some assessment in service districts alone. I think we're fairly up to $1.6 million potentially in relation to that as an assessment. So again, that number could be changed, but I think this blends nicely into this theme of really about safety and services and being able to understand.
The whole issue of water planning and water planning statewide is also going to be a big issue in the legislature this year. And there was a trio of legislators that are pushing that agenda, including Marco Wade, who's a commissioner for a short time. And I think that he's got a pretty good chance at making his agenda move forward. It's very clearly bipartisan initiative. So that water planning and assessment piece, I think, is again something that, especially if we can support the legislation that makes it possible to do that statewide, we have a good shot at it.
Yes, so my comments on number 4, I'm just, it's very broad and sort of out there. So, will the lobbyist be working to sort of flesh that out and
Watch for opportunities.
Yeah, I think that we're, well said. I think yes, but they'll be in this place where they're, so this might be our theme, this might be our request, but there could be an opportunity over here or an opportunity over there. And say, okay, well, maybe there's some infrastructure money here for bridge assessments or something around water sewer. I mean, they'll be able to work throughout. I think that we want to be, whatever we put forward, we want to make sure it's something that is well vetted, that we're, we get that money, we're not just gonna sit on it, we're gonna be able to put it to work relatively quickly. I always use the word shovel ready, but ready to go. Well estimated, that we can count on whatever we get, we can actually deliver. But you're right, Commissioner Wise. I think that there is some detail that I need to get behind some of this so that at least CFM is able to kind of talk and understand where those numbers.
Sure, yeah, I'm just putting myself, if I was a state rep and I read this, I would be like, what are you want money for? What's your plan?
Yeah.
And I also, so when we talk about bridge assessments, don't we already, like, doesn't ODOT have a look at our bridges and assess them already, or like, I think we maybe have some of that information through ODOT.
That is true, Commissioner. There are certain bridges that the state does do an assessment for us on. There are also what we call off-system bridges that they don't. So there are certainly bridges that they do. And so we would need to resolve that with, obviously, Gary and Public Works to make sure we know which ones the state has done, which ones we would be focusing on.
And Commissioner Wise brings up a good question. This might not be the sheet that we hand out to the legislators. This is for CFM, and it's very much none of these are fixed. They are all going to be iterated as we go through the session and as we watch for opportunities. So we're going to have to be nimble.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. You're right. She's right. I'll talk about sort of what, if you support this in general, what the next steps would be to get into a little bit more specificity. But you're right. This is the kind of just get the direction.
Sure, okay, thank you. And again, it's just my nature to, look at things as sort of this bridge needs to be fixed, let's fix it. And you can say, hold on, take a step back, this is the better way to do it, then I will trust you. So, okay.
I appreciate the effort, and it's hard to go from ideas floating around and actually putting them in categories and words. And I would second Commissioner O'Leary's notion that it's a work in progress. Get feedback from our electeds and from our government relations folks. And that's too big a number. It's right category. drop it down a little bit and it will fit there, kind of. Get feedback. We can't operate like we're on an island and just have internal conversations. This is going to be a back and forth and sort of opportunistic before, and I think that's important. We have our goals, but I think it was last year when we submitted 26 items to our congressional 6 or 8 to our congressional folks, and I'm gonna toss that one. You have 2 that might have some life, and that kind of feedback is essential, and that we push things that seem to have some momentum and traction. Just like my housing comment earlier, that's going to be a big topic in the state legislature, and there will be some legislation and dollars coming out of that.
So the last priority is again, sort of looking at all the things that we talked about and trying to pick out again ideas that some support the community involved, but again, are they ones that are well vetted? How far along are we in terms of planning, in terms of estimate? And one that sort of came through for your consideration is the promoting economic growth, as I called it, but really looking at the proposed fairground exhibit. This is again a project I know that has obviously a lot of work and planning behind it. It also has a pretty, at least the most current and updated estimate around it. So I think the other part that's interesting on this is that it also seems to have some support legislatively from the lobby side, particularly with Business Oregon. And you all know that we did get statewide dollars from Business Oregon. What we're talking about here, though, is to go specifically for us. And we've already had some inquiries from the Oregon Fair Association, who has all the paid lobbyists that's acting on cap some of the AOC on all counties, and we want to partner with them. But at this point, I think if we want something specific for Benton County, we would want to see if them represent that. We would instead of work in conjunction. I did have a conversation with Leonard Key and Jess Yacht, because the Oregon Fair Association has contacted them about filling out forms, and they think if this is the direction that we go, it would probably be best to work through CFM and then have our advocacy advocates partner with their association, as opposed to submitting to them and sort of expected to be carried.
And especially considering the Oregon Fairs Association, they were able to gain $10 million, as you know, this last legislative session, which would benefited from to the tune of not quite 300,000. But we're asking for one item that is $10 million. So in order to submit that to the Oregon Fairs Association, and they're probably not contemplating anywhere near the dollars that we are. But we do want to coordinate, and we do want to complement each other to the degree that we can. But not necessarily ditching our wagon specifically to them.
Yeah, Patrick Singh has 36 counties to deal with, so.
And most, if not all, have aging infrastructure and serious building needs. Probably at least 30. And the other thing, there has been a fair amount of planning, but before for the exhibit hall, but before that there was market research and to give us some kind of guidance where investments have listings paying off, and I think it makes sense. I remember the discussions with Orla, Oregon Restaurant and the Launching Association when we were proposing to institute a transit lodging tax, they weren't thrilled with any tax increase, but because there was some acceptance. Okay, if you have an exhibit hall, we'll have exhibitors, people coming into town, restaurants, using our restaurants and hotels, motels. So I think there was, even though not thrilled with any tax increase, there was some acceptance that this was a good idea. We had a sound basis for proceeding on this. So I guess don't forget about the market research that's been done.
I think, one of the big selling thing, finance guys, I always think of these in terms of economic stimulus. So investment you make, maybe a one-time investment may be large, but the stimulus that you create through, like you said, increased tourism, increased opportunities for the community, fair shows, whatever events, whatever you hold, that could actually help the local tax base. I think is a good thing. The last two things that I put on here, again, not really from a priority standpoint. These are, again, my theme here is more funding in nature, but as opposed to a specific ask, more from a specific, let's continue to get support for two things that we talked about, community corrections. We talked clearly that the funding that has, or at least is forecasted in relation to supporting our community corrections program does not feel adequate. I think that's been an issue for some time. And so while not necessarily saying Benton County needs this, we want to support community corrections in general and where those opportunities present themselves. And then the second thing we know we talked about is around secure residential treatment facilities. We know that there is an investment this biennium specifically for applications, which we've submitted, but that's not an ongoing funding stream. And so the idea of continuing supporting that, so that we and others have opportunities, again, not a specific Benton County request, but a specific Benton County opportunity.
And that's another issue that is likely to be, from what we heard yesterday at Hot Topic, that is the capacity in the state for both substance use disorder treatment and for mental health treatment. There's an understanding that housing is a key component of that. So I think that it's likely to be discussed. There are a couple of related issues. And one is that the Association of Oregon Counties and the Association of Oregon Counties Mental Health Programs are their top issue in this behavioral health area is indemnification at the county level, so that we don't, so that if the county is sued because someone's released from the state hospital and in our local facility with local mental health housing, that we are not liable for any actions that that individual might take, or the state would defend us. And that I just want to make sure that CFM knows that we very much hold particularly support that. And so there are a couple of issues like that we maybe need to just let them know about. With respect to the community corrections, the conversation has been about changing how current service level is calculated because of the changes in the sentencing laws. And I thought there was a work group on that. I don't know. So
I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, it might be worth finding out because and this is not a problem that just faces Benton County. It's an issue that's facing all of the counties.
Okay. And that would be, a good angle, obviously, to influence current service level calculation.
Yeah.
Particularly in correction system. It's very.
Yeah, I think what's most difficult about that conversation is that we are constantly talking about changing the system so that we provide more wraparound services for adults in custody and as they're emerging from the system. But we're also disinvesting in the people that currently do that work and our parole and probation folks. And so I think they feel very much kind of neglected and left in the dark because here they are, they provide an awful lot of this kind of support. But they are not included in any of the proposed solutions and funding.
So, Commissioner-wise, members of the commission, if you support these, I mean, sort of the next steps was, so, well, I guess, first of all, priority 1 and 2 will be sort of a continued, this will help sort of tee up some of our discussions that we can will have with you next week as you begin sizing the bond. So this will influence the part of that, but again, like I said, particularly around priority 2, still some discussions that need to be had direction that we want to go. But it will be, this ask will be co-linked, if you will, to the sizing of our bond measure. So if you support these areas, the next piece for me is really what the CFM would like to have is to get into that detail you talked a little bit more. What they've seen successful is one-page talking papers that is specific for each of these priorities, and that's why I need these individuals that are listed here because they are the subject matter experts. Certainly can help and facilitate, but I need their brains, particularly I think on 3 and 4, that might need a little bit more substance as it relates to the detail. I think 1, 2, and 5 I feel pretty solid about because we have estimates, we have a lot of information specific to that. So, but that's really the next step is to get to something more refined that our lobby team can use. The other piece is that there's already requests coming in for much to the fiscal office or specific, if you want lottery bonds, if you want this. So we need to get them started completing those forms. And that usually is now between now and the end of the year.
Yeah.
So the timing is running short, and that's the reason I've been somewhat anxious in terms of getting these sort of in direction. The last thing I will say is the other list there, that's, please know, that's not forgotten. That's still a list that CFM will use. It's information for them. It may be something like you said earlier, commissioners, or if something comes up. But I think a lot of those things that there's another conversation you need to have on the congressional standpoint, because I think you're going to find with CFM, they bring something else besides just lobbying. From a congressional standpoint, they also bring capacity to write grants and to identify true opportunities that maybe we haven't seen before. So you'll hear more from them, but I just wanted to let you know, we're not leaving those ideas. It's just, these ones seem to be the most fit for this agenda.
Thank you. That's a good segue right into my next question, which was, yes, the items that didn't make it on this list. My question was just, are we saving those for the federal level? Can we speak a little bit about those and?
Absolutely, that list was, yeah, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say things like the courthouse and the pathway and the 53rd. But sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Commissioner, I didn't interrupt. So absolutely not forgotten. It's still an active list that we will actually, I will get to Zach as well. He'll have both lists because I want him also to, if there are things that come up that maybe lend itself well to something on that list at the state standpoint, we want to take it. Same time, I think what we've heard from them, and Joe heard this as well, is that a lot of the infrastructure stuff, particularly transportation, it's going to really be probably better on the federal side with more opportunities there. And so when we talk to Michael next week, I want to sort of do the same type of thing with him on, okay, what are some of the things that we can maybe carry forward congressionally as well. We're going to have a couple opportunities. Number one, come March, we're going to have the congressional delegated spending process again, which is what 8-year mark specific projects. So that's one. But also where I think we're missing out is that we have an expert there at DC that can identify all these new programs, particularly that are going to come down and be able to help assist us in writing grants. So that's where I think we need to dive in there and work with Michael to figure out what do we want to try to push forward from there. And have a little more time with that. That's why I'm a little more anxious on the state side to kind of get this rolling, but we have a little bit more time with others.
Okay, and then my next question is about priorities. Is it fair or correct to say that they are in priority order? Priority number one is our top priority.
That's how I presented it, but you certainly can change that if you like.
I just wanted to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, so I just wanted to make sure is that, you know, priority one, the EOC, is that absolutely we see as the number one priority.
Absolutely.
I think that. Oh, it's with our old Jason effort and figure out a discrete piece so we can shop around and see about plenty of opportunities outside of Benton County.
Okay, and number two is so the difference between 2 and 3, 2 is the capital, it's a facility, like a physical.
So
Versus-
priority 1 and 2 would both be a facility request.
Pardon me, I meant part, so between priority 2 and 3.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes,
You would-
one's the facility and the third one would be more of the operation service or capacity.
On the legislative list, we look at the overall, and it has the congressional spending, the co-management, the policy and the capital. So.
Yeah, so
Which of these documents you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm on page 67.
Yeah, so you're looking at the legislative one.
Yeah.
The one before that is the congressional one that has things blended in terms of the capital ask and policy.
Sure, yeah, I'm just looking at the, yeah, I'm looking at 2023 state legislative funded priorities, just making 1 through 5, just making sure that that is our priority order.
And Commissioner, for clarification, make sure you're looking at the one that says update number 12.
Yes. Thank you. Any other comments on that, on priority order?
No.
Looks good.
Mhm.
Okay. Awesome. What else do you need from us?
you give me everything that you needed, so now the next step is to get to work with some of these priority experts. I do want to say that the sheriff is on. We've also, he's been part of these conversations, particularly on the JSIP piece. So wanted to assure you that we try to keep him in the loop as well. And obviously we'll be working closely with him on particularly priority number 1.
Very good.
One last thing, follow up from yesterday, had a nice conversation with Jay Board, Energy Trust of Oregon. My theme was your JSIP project and what could you have?
Yeah.
And he was very interested in our facilities and so I gave him your name and Joe's name. And I think we'll be contacting you, to make sure that we're aware of opportunities for. So we've already done the solar panels. I think they were involved. And you know, kind of in sales, but what was interested, and I don't think he's aware of the scale of what we're planning to do. The best time to do planning and energy efficiency and battery backup or whatever the program is, make sure that we're aware of that while we're in the design phase.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I think that has brought them in a couple of times. Stages.
Yeah, I'm not saying we were in the dark.
Yeah.
Saying he was wanting to make sure we were aware of opportunities.
It's great. I think they should be open to any all opportunities, particularly in the Energy Trust Fund Oregon, different types of things to be able to seek out where there might be leveraging resources.
I particularly like the idea of battery backup at the emergency operations center. The sheriff's office.
That would be a no-brainer. So, yeah. he knows about the programs, or you know, somebody in the office who knows more in specifics. And it's, Jay Ward is, and seemed like we had a meeting that he was involved with.
Yep.
Mr. 3 years
Yes.
ago.
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that, and various.
That was a PGE meeting, but yeah, he was there too. And I spoke to a colleague at PGE last night as well. So yeah, they're also, both of them have expressed appreciation for them County because we have real good uptake for all of their blue sky programs. So thus they do a lot of reinvestment back into the county. If we can keep that virtuous circle going, it will help us.
Just like I was saying earlier, shovel ready, gives money, and we perform, and that makes them look good, makes us look good, and hopefully keeps the programs moving forward and maybe expanding.
Thank you, commissioners, appreciate it. It's a good agenda and we'll get to work on it. Keep it.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
It's exciting.
All right, so I'm gonna call for a 5-minute break, and when we come back, we will do the county administrator updates. All right, well, we made it back and we are ready to get going again. And we are at item number 4.5, county administrator updates. So Kirby, please take it away.
Great, good morning, commissioners. I just have a few updates for you today. First of all, I wanted to mention to you and remind you that Lynn McKee's last week is this week. I feel like folks a director, as you know, and her last day is on Friday. So if you wouldn't mind to take the time to contact her this week, I would greatly appreciate it. I did take her and Jesse out to lunch yesterday, and we were thinking about planning a happy hour event, and then as COVID became more prevalent, it didn't seem like it was safe to do that. So we kind of postponed that. We've come up with a couple of ideas for them. One of those being celebrating her time with us at fair right before one of the musical events, which she has poured a bunch of effort into. So anyway, just wanted to highlight that. So as of Friday afternoon at 5, and Jesse will be taking over that role in an active capacity. We have gone through the process of updating the job description as we typically do in our vacancies, and more on checking in with you. I think that recruitment request was sent off late last week, or is it still pending?
It will be released to HR this afternoon.
Okay, great. So we should start recruiting here very shortly. So just be aware of that.
And what, how long do you anticipate that being open, or is it depending on response?
My likely will do a continuous recruitment with the first review date. And you know, that first review date will be 3 to 4 weeks down the way.
Even the holidays, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Mhm.
Exactly. Now, let's see, moving on as relates to some scheduling items coming up. Just wanted to highlight that the meeting that we would normally have on December 27th, that meeting has been canceled, and so there will be no board meeting that day. And so that is typically we have a regular information sharing meeting, or
And since I've been with the county, we have not met once during, between Christmas and New
I
Year's.
was gonna be the first one to change that.
exactly, so that was done in consultation with Commissioner Wise. In addition, there will be in the office tomorrow afternoon, Thursday and Friday. And I did send you an email yesterday, but since you're gone, you may not, since you were gone yesterday, you may not see that. Also, just to let you know, staff and myself have been spending an enormous amount of time trying to pin things down, trying to make sure we've dotted our i's and t's crossed as we come before the board in your deliberations surrounding the justice system improvement program. And we will have a significant dialogue with the board next week on December 20th. And then we are still hoping that on January 3rd, that the board can finish any deliberations you might have and hopefully give direction to staff. I would emphasize that January 3rd by far would be our preference. However, we do have a backup date of January 10th. If we need that in order for the board to have additional time to deliberate, the staff's preference is that we wrap things up in terms of board direction as to what will be included in the bond and what will be included. So we've been spending a lot of time behind the scenes with the act and rec and Vance and myself and several others, just trying to get things solidified as much as we can, so we have as much information as possible to consider on December 20th. In addition to that, let's see. Wanted to give you an update more. I'd ask that you participate in this room that we're sitting in, which is our new boardroom, is still uncompleted, incomplete at this time, is how I would like to say it. And Maura and I have been getting updates from them regularly. And so we think we're in a position where IT will really begin over the course of the next 30 days to implement the remaining technology in this room with the help of the consultant that we're using. And so over the next 30 days, you should see more activity in here where the room begins to be finalized. There'll be a testing period. Once the equipment is in, there'll be a training period as well for not only our board staff, but other staff in the building. For example, community development staff who also, host a planning commission, host meetings. And, so there'll be time for testing, there'll be time for training, and then we'll go live at some point within certainly the first quarter of 2023. Could be as easy, or as early as maybe February. Maura, is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, Joe, actually, I did reach out to IT Director Adam Wertz all last week just to get an update on the schedule, and the schedule that you've just communicated, it will remain on track with that.
Great. Keep in mind, in order for us to advance this project forward, we had to work with the company that we hired to spec other pieces of equipment that were similar to what had originally been bid. But this project has all been impacted by supply chain. And so we've worked diligently over the last 3 to 4 months to identify other pieces of parts that could be substituted for what was originally bid in order for us to really bring this project to completion.
Does that mean the hardware is close to coming, or would we have pieces to plug in?
The answer to that is yes. And that is, if we waited for what was originally spec, we'd still be waiting until probably March, if not longer. And so we went through the effort of trying to identify what would be equivalent specifications that can be provided by other vendors. And that's really what you'll be seeing. I don't want the board to think that it's not at the same standard. It's just different than the original specifications we were using. But once again, trying to deal with the supply chain issues, that's significant. Also, with that being said, been spending a lot of time between Maura and I working on our budget with finance and department budget. And what we've been working with finance on is really kind of establishing our current service levels and agreeing on what those current service levels are. And then we will come back around and begin identifying, what are those policy packages that we'll be submitting that would be over and above our current service level expenses. And so we're just really working through those current service levels right now. And we're going to be taking a look at more detail. We haven't looked at our personnel costs yet. That's part of the next process in the budget. And I wanted you to know that there's a lot of work going on the scenes. And I don't want to get in finance, but of course, all of the other departments in finance. And so I would say at this point, we are on track for what we're hoping to do at this point in the budget process. So it's really all been about addressing what we believe to be bringing our current service levels on it. Because anything above current service levels that are being proposed for increases in the budget, that will then be handled through policy packages, which will be separate and apart from the current service levels. More has been learning a lot about the budgeting process and helping certainly clean some things up.
Yeah.
That we did clean up. Relative to line items, coding, and so there, needed some cleanup. So thank you.
I think it's wonderful to have one person for the board doing all of that again, because I think it's gotten pretty fragmented. Yeah.
And I know we certainly are working with our program staff, for example, Corey Grogan, who's present, informing the current service levels and discussing about policy packages, but we're doing that with each one of our class centers, if you will, within the board's office. So that's where I've been spending a lot of time in those two things that I just mentioned. But as it relates to updates for it, that's really what I have for you this morning. Unless you have specific questions that you'd like to propose, I'm happy to answer anything that you mentioned.
Questions?
I guess the only other question I have is about that OTAC meeting that got canceled again. Is it just being rescheduled again for?
Yeah, I got an email from Gary that everything is being rescheduled for January 12th. So I don't have any other details behind that.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions before we move on? Hearing none, thank you, County Administrator. So we will move on to item 4.6, Commissioner updates. And we would like to go first. I can, or you,
Go ahead.
okay, so I do have some updates today. Let's see, so I attended the Sheriff's Office Forestry Steering Committee meeting last Thursday. And that was just a good learning experience, hearing from all of the partners, their concerns, and just in general, all the happenings and goings on. More talk about homelessness, camping issues, and just hearing some other concerns that came up that I feel like I was able to help with. You know, if you don't know about a concern, how can you address it? So glad I went to that. Let's see, the South Willamette Valley Groundwater Management Area, so WAMA, that committee is the staff person's changed. They didn't meet during the pandemic. I think we've had one meeting. Anyway, Grace is the new staff person on that. And she is interested in kind of breathing new life and energy into the committee, which I think is great. The main concern is just finding folks that have the time and stakeholders to be on the committee, showing up. And so that, anyway, stay tuned. There might be some changes there. From my perspective, I would like to see that committee actually, I would like to see something come from the meetings and actually see work being done. Apparently there's a work plan that's like ancient as far as plans go. And so I'm hoping that the people talk about the work plan and you know, actually have a group that does something and not just, okay, we meet because it's ORS or, you know, we're checking the box. One concern I heard at the last meeting was DEQ has all these wells that they monitor with their 19 levels, and some of them were unsafe. And then we had a community member there saying, well, that's my well there, and I've never been notified, like, you guys collect the data, but you don't tell us, you don't notify us, so I think there's a lot of room for improvement there. But if anybody has thoughts that they would like to contribute now or later, I don't know.
Well, that meeting was a huge component of the communications vehicle that DEQ used to communicate with these neighbors, and it's unfortunate that that's broken down. The other thing I wanted to mention is that when Bill Enninger was the head of environmental health, built into those meetings regularly, and I was very well plugged in. And without Bill, I think that we have to figure out, and again, this is water again, and I would love to see someone own the water issues that straddle all of our departments. So
I did connect Grace with Darren Nichols, just so that they can have a conversation with their leisure about water issues.
Commissioners, on the topic of water, at your January 10th goal setting meeting, we will be having a more extensive conversation regarding water, regional water planning. Darren Nichols will be present for that, and Darren also has a fairly new staff member that has expertise in hydrology, and that I think will be a real benefit to community development, the county overall. And so we'll definitely be having more conversations on this topic on January 10th.
Okay, good to know. Next, LOAC, the Local Official Advisory Committee, which is the committee that advises the LCD and the LCDC. I got to chair that yesterday from the Portland office, because it was just a couple blocks from the convention center, so that worked out really well. So that group, we previously decided to add 2 more seats to hopefully increase the representation and it's more diverse voices on the group. Now, after this recent elections, there are now more commissioner and counselor that can no longer serve, not get elected. So we are looking for 5 positions on that board. So if you know anyone, commissioners or city councilors, especially in the eastern side of Oregon, southern Oregon, please encourage them to apply. It's 4 meetings a year, and maybe extra meetings sprinkled in for information if you're interested in going to those extra meetings, but the extra meetings will not be mandatory. But it is a great opportunity to have the voices heard, which sometimes has been challenging.
So Coast would also be good, wouldn't it? So there are a couple of people I can think of from Coast.
Okay, so applications to apply are going to open up early January. Then we'll take a couple months to make those appointments. So the current LOAC members will have a chance to give their opinions, and then staff will also kind of review the applications behind the scenes as well. And I do have another city councilor from Benton County that is interested in maybe applying, since we're losing Catherine Bisco. So let's see, besides that, we had some really good updates from Ethan Steckmayer. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but he is the senior planner of housing programs, and he shared a link with us. So it's Housing Production Strategy Program, list of tools, actions, and policies. I can send you all the link if you're interested. It's 13 pages of strategies and just ideas on how to tools, basically tools in your toolbox on how you can address housing issues. So more geared more towards cities probably than counties, but just if you're interested, keeping out on this stuff, I can send you.
I would be happy to see the link. Is that also part of what was in the Oregon Housing Needs Analysis?
Yes.
Okay, I've already seen it.
Okay, very good. So yeah, we got an update on that, and we had a chance to give feedback and some input on it. And then also input on DLCD's work plan. So good, that was good. Feels good to actually have a say and hopefully be impactful rather than just sitting through everything we need. Let's see, last week. I think it was last week, I did right along with the Vermont Police Department. And I thought that went well. Pretty much all of our calls were mental health. So we did one proactive to the individual that stayed down by Pioneer Park, checked on him. Responded to a call where the officer had already been that morning and ended up taking that individual that was having a mental health crisis. Gave her a ride to the health department, yep, and sat with her, checked her in. Another gentleman, similar issue, mental health crisis, gave him a ride to the emergency room. So, I mean, we were in the emergency room for at least 45 minutes. Where the individual was trying to get him to kind of cooperate with staff and kind of settle down. And I was very impressed, but it's also, we already know that we need the crisis center, obviously, which is why we're moving it along, but it just cannot come soon enough because, you know, our police officers, this is not their, it's not their job. I mean, he did a good job and we're lucky to have him and other officers like him, but it's not the best solution. It's not the best way.
And why wasn't the core team activated?
Question. He did explain it to me at one point, and I'm not recalling off at the moment, you know, they're limited and they only have so many hours. And so they were not available at that time.
They have one day a week that they do administrative stuff, what I understand, and then, you know, they kind of, yeah.
They're 8 to 5 during the week.
Yeah.
More limited than that, and so correct, there's only two people.
Yeah. So it just.
There was some talk, maybe next budget, next year.
We have been trying to hire for months at least.
That's a challenging role to hire for, and there may be a policy package that comes forward as relates to core. I don't know that for a fact, but just knowing Suzanne and how aware they are of the needs, so that there might be a budget decision that the commissioners maybe face with them.
But there's also supposed to be money from the state, because this was part of last funding, in the last legislature. They added a whole bunch of behavioral health funding, and you know, we keep hearing Senator Wyden too saying that we just got money into Medicaid for this type of funding, and so we also know we can build, but we can't build if we don't have the staff. So yeah.
So there's definitely, you know, shortage of needs. In that department, so. And I think that's what I had, but I have some of my lists in here. Other than I attended the leadership summit yesterday with my fellow commissioners, which. You never know, I did have some good takeaways, but overall I thought it was pretty Portland centric, Portland heavy, but it was good. And I really enjoyed the panel of the 4 elected officials, state reps and the senators. I thought that was useful. And with that, we can move on to the next commissioner who would like to go.
Oh.
You ready?
Well, last week, I thought we were joint meeting. Your city council. Interesting exercise. I was a little surprised they didn't have a time limit on people speaking. Maybe that doesn't happen very often. Certainly suggest that. So it seemed like it went on a little longer than needed, but pretty good. At least modest public participation. That was good to see. I think I'll skip right to yesterday, the leadership summit. I'm always impressed with people that can organize and put on a program efficiently and to start off with Senators Wyden and Murphy. Seems like, oh, this is a real deal, and to get their attendance. And just pointing out to Senator Whiteson, chair of the Finance Committee, and Senator Merkley is on the Appropriations Committee. So that brings us back to 30 years ago when we had Backwood and Hatfield, and it makes a real difference. I mean, there's different eras, what kind of money is available, how much discretion peers have. But I think that fits right in with our federal government relations effort, and to have our two senators in pretty good positions to help us out. And just going over the themes, and like I mentioned before, housing, Senator Wyden, mental health, mentioned the CAHOOTS program in the potential model for others, and he has a long-term personal interest in mental health issues. We need the Congress to pass the omnibus spending bill. There's two choices right now. That's the good choice, because there's community directed spending projects in the omnibus bill. If they do a continuing resolution, those fall out, and I think that will be handled in the lame duck session that's probably going on as we speak. And continuing resolution time frame, everything from a couple of weeks to a couple of years. And continuing resolution means whatever you had last time continues forward, and anything new drops off. And Oregon will be most parts of the country will be beneficiaries on this spending bill passes. So, but we don't have to invite our senators to
They're already doing it.
tell them which way that should go, but it's a crapshoot. I mean, there's political calculations and people leaving, and I don't know that much about it, but I do know it will make a difference for us depending on how. I should say we don't currently have a budget for the year that started October 1st. Managed to hunt past election day, and now it's which doesn't leave a lot of working days for these folks. And I think a lot's going to go on. And hopefully, most of it will be good. We got to right after lunch. Speaker Rayfield, I was a little seemed like they kept them on a very short timeline. Not necessarily the senators, but everybody else have a precious few minutes and get your points across, because you don't have very much time. But Dan did a great job with setting out priorities from the upcoming legislative session, good speaker, and, is good at prioritizing efforts going forward. Got to meet Rob Wagner, Senator Rob Wagner, who will be the president of the Senate in a couple weeks here. So that's kind of a big deal because Peter Courtney has been in that position for a long time. So I think it will make a difference having different leadership. And like was mentioned, there's a panel of 4 2 senators, 2 representatives, 2 RSPDs, again, going over what they see coming up in the next legislative session. Governor Kotek, and then wrapped up that part of discussion and made a good pitch of elections over. It's time to get to work, and a lot of these issues really aren't partisan. There are things that need doing. She pledged to say every county or
Every time.
make a tour of the state in the first year. As part of her effort to bring people together to go around the state, talking and listening, and so I thought that was a good way to start things off. The dinner last night, and I wasn't planning on going to, the spot opened up, and glad I did. But when I first thought about this, and I thought the program went further in the day, and I think it did in the past, but it wrapped up at 2 o'clock, and then if you mingle after that, it's 2:30, and the reception for dinner started at 5:30. So I was like, yeah, there must be some pressure that, well, we're busy, let's wrap this thing up and get back to work or out of Portland, or just obviously surprising that the dinner was well attended. I happened to meet up with a table, and the governor was there, and there was some mention when they started talking about the dinner and who's here, and there's no program, and she clapped. I thought about clapping. She has more credibility and not running for election again. She had glad to have something new in her future. I asked her, well, what's going to get a job? And she said, not right away. I'm going to take off for right after the first year on a well-deserved vacation. So, and I sat next to a new state rep from Lake Oswego, who owns restaurants. It was kind of an interesting discussion. That's what I have.
Well, I'll start off with the leadership summit since we're on that topic. I think the biggest difference between this year and previous years was that there were breakout sessions late in the afternoon in previous years. And while it was kind of nice to end the day a little earlier, I really missed those because those were opportunities to meet and mingle with people that I didn't know already. Whereas an awful lot of the corridor and lobby mingling happens with people that you do already know, just the way things work. So, but it was a good meeting. The dinner was much larger than it's been in the past, and about 3 times as large, I would say, yeah, and
250 people.
yeah, it included all of the speakers from the day, plus legislators and commissioners. So it was a big gathering. It was a great representation from the universities around the state, small and large. I was at a table with President Morty, so I spoke to her a bit, one AOC staffer next to Frau Wagner, the incoming president of the Senate. So it was great to get to know him, make a little bit more connection there. Eastern Oregon University trustee, and Duncan Wise, who's the head of the organization OBI, is one of the lead sponsors of the event. So it was a good conversation. One of my big takeaways is about I mentioned that it's Portland centric, the Silicon Valley, Silicon Forest rather, emphasis and the expansion of the microchip sector, and the opportunity under the new legislation passed by Congress, the CHIPS Act, and the IRA. I can't remember what all of the different pieces of legislation are. The Inflation Reduction Act. They are also focused on trying to expand the reach of that sector beyond the Portland metro area, partly because they're running out of space there, but that also they highlighted Hewlett Packard, and Sue Richards from Hewlett Packard was there. I did have an opportunity to butt in over later and talk to her a little bit. I know that they were they had been hoping to expand their footprint there, and our own the Safety and Justice campuses kind of impinging upon their interests in that way. But they're working very closely with the university on options, and my point to her was to please just reach out to us, talk to us, let us know what your interests are, where you want to go, because we'd be happy to work with you. But if we don't know what you want to do, we can't. So hopefully we can continue to expand, open that door a little bit further, so that we can work with Hewlett Packard as they take advantage of these new opportunities.
Was there any indication from her revitalizing Wells campus?
Oh, the buildings are full right now. When I went up there as part of the bus tour, that both of you also went on different pieces of it. Especially building 11 that was partially empty, it is completely full of companies that are spinning off from work at Oregon State University, or that are suppliers to Hewlett Packard. So they're getting closer to ready to thinking about how to do things differently. So we'll see. I'd love to have more of a conversation with leadership there, to know and understand better what their interests are. We'll see what we can do. So that was a well worthwhile day in Portland, from my perspective. Also had a great opportunity to talk to other people and meet some new people during the reception last night. Related to all that, I think you guys know that initially in the restructure in the Association of Oregon County Steering Committees, Jessica Baker Peterson was going to be co-chair for the Health and Human Services Committee, but she chose to not do that because her new role as the chair of Multnomah County Commission, which means that she's the day-to-day administrator. This means that she's full up. So I stepped into that role, and so I'm looking forward to that and being able to work closely with the all of the folks that are working on healthcare and mental health, some of the housing related, agenda items on the legislative agenda. Steve Kramer will be my counterpart, co-chair, from Eastern Michigan. So look forward to working with Steve. It's all 2 weeks ago now, took part in, and I'm not sure how much I told you about the Spanish language JSIP session we had with Casa Latinos Unidos. And they were the primary organizers, and they were the speakers at the session. Ricardo Contreras is on our advisory committee, so he's pretty up to date on things, and the materials, we provided slide deck materials to them, and they translated it all into Spanish. And so their staff were able to do the presentation. And then Brian Lee and I responded to questions. Probably about 15 people there. It was a good group, 15 to 20. And I very positively received overall. The folks just said that they were very glad to be as part of the discussion, to be in the room, to have their voices heard. So Brenda was going to be summarizing all of the notes from that meeting. I think that they'll probably be shared with all of us. Main thing that stood out to me was interest in having jail capacity here rather than in Norfolk. So people were near, family members were nearby. Having some better behavioral health space in whatever correctional facility we have, and just like the rest of the community, more upstream intervention, more prevention, more wraparound services, families, and what was mentioned, especially families that have, where the parents have more than one job and they just don't have time, and they need other ways to help make sure their kids are involved in productive activities. So that is a good segue to the Youth Development Council and well, I should say Youth Development Oregon, the Youth Development Council, Youth Development Vision Community Conversations meeting that I took part in a week ago yesterday over at the Corvallis Boys and Girls Club. I'm on the Youth Development Council. There were 3 of us council members that were there, along with staff and community partners. This was they're holding a series of regional meetings all over the state. I think 10, 11 of them all together. I had argued for a meeting in Corvallis or Albany, rather than Salem and Springfield. I would say, yeah, Salem or Eugene, because people from here don't necessarily travel there. And we had a really good turnout, probably one of the most robust turnouts of the meetings they've had so far. About 50-ish people from Lincoln County, Benton, Lynn, and Lane. Great conversation and just wonderful opportunities to connect with people. There are a couple of new nonprofit groups that I've been wanting to reach out to. One, Ophelia's Place and Young Roots. They're both based in Albany. Ophelia's Place focuses on teen girls and providing them kind of a clubhouse, a girl-oriented space, young woman-oriented space. And Young Roots is all about young parents and wrapping around support services and networking for parents that are maybe in their teens or their early 20s that just don't have the support system. And so it was good to meet some of those other organizations. And I had a couple of good conversations about housing with folks there, and also met people from the STEM hub of the Lynn Benton Lincoln. They're based at Lynn Benton Community College, and also have reached out to schedule a conversation, and I'll let you know what I learned from them. So that was a good conversation. They're having a statewide youth development community conversation online, and I can send you the information if either of you are interested at some point in dipping into that and hearing what those are all about. Primarily, the Youth Development Division provides an awful lot of grant opportunities for community-based organizations, and they support juvenile departments around the state. So. What else? The ALSI, last thing is the ALSI listening event on that just this last Saturday. that was initiated originally by Commissioner Jacobson. Amy Jacobson from Lincoln County. Both Senator Anderson and Rep. Gomberg also attended. Other community members would appreciate the fact that everyone had come together and were listening to what the needs were in Alsea. There was about a dozen people in attendance. One of the things that the group was quick to point out was that they were not representative of Alsea. They were representative of the newcomer community. In other words, they've been there less than 40 years or less. And we had a conversation about what it would mean, whether we should do this again. But the answer was definitely yes. They'd love to have us come out again, and maybe once a quarter or something like that. But they'd like to have a next meeting at either the Grange or Alsea Community Fellowship, because those are the two community hubs for the longer, the old timer community there, and be much more likely to attract people. But there are still some residual feelings about the libraries and about the library and the segments of the Alsea community. And
Why?
They used eminent domain. In order to cite the library, and it was conversion from ag, that corner in Alsea, but that's part of it, and I think there's just some fault lines, cultural fault lines too. And I did not realize that the library was part of that. I think some of the initial fault lines were because of all the smaller owl and timber stuff, and area spraying was a huge issue that divided the community out there for quite a while. But I didn't realize the library would just increase that. It was too bad. So anyway, this group was we had good suggestions about how we could bring a better cross section of the community together. There were a couple people that were not part of that group, but they were the minority. So we heard a lot about the school district, about roads and the real desire for some more county road investment out there, and the effects of recreation, and the fact that recreation does bring money to the local economy, but it also has a lot of side effects on roads once again. I am going to type up my notes almost to the rest of the group, but I would do that. There are a couple of follow-up items that Commissioner Jacobson and I pledged to get back to folks about. One of the main things that they would really like to have out there, and maybe to that, is need for a commercial kitchen. The school does not have a commercial kitchen, and it's one of the main gaps that they have in terms of their emergency planning resilience. They expect to be the first receiving community in the case of any kind of Cascadia subduction or earthquake along that Highway 34, if people can even get there. And they don't have, they won't have the feeding capacity that they need in order to do that. So, but I will put these notes together and I will share them with everyone so that everyone can see what the issues of interest are, and we can all follow up. And there are a couple of questions that are set out on this topic. So that's it for me.
Well, that's, I think I will call for another 5-minute break before I know the agenda says a 30-minute recess, but I don't think we need
Before our executive session. Yeah.
Yeah, because if the meeting was gonna be longer, but anyway.
So
So instead of the 30-minute recess, we'll just do like a 5-minute break, and then we will come back and go into executive session. Sound good? Okay.
We'll be swapping out staff more for the burden, and Sherman will be taking notes being online, and Tracy will facilitate.
At this time, other than Kim Sherman and Alex Powers representing the media, I would ask that The remainder of our online participants, please leave the meeting.
Yes, all right, and it looks like the owl can hear us, that's good, okay, so. Or camera on, sure, camera can be on if you want. Right, thank you so much. So we have adjourned the executive session. We are now back to our regular session. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Anything else for the good of the order? All right, so with that, I will adjourn the meeting at 1:41 PM. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. That's good.
Actually, fine.
That would be, I'm not sure you were in the room, we do have a. Yeah. Yeah, and I know we did get a couple of message.